Hi guys, welcome. And we have Amanda Decker in the house today. So we have a really cool interview for you guys. I connected with her on Twitter, obviously, as you do, and we headed off and we've been talking ever since. So without further ado, Amanda, could you give us a quick intro about who you are, what you do, and how you got into the health space?
Yeah, awesome. I am a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for 18 years. I practice in rural Tennessee. I've always wanted to be a doctor or a healthcare provider since early age. I don't know, it's just been a drive that's been part of me. My mom remembers me being 5 years old and doctoring my patients and saying that was what I was going to do. So it was where I was going from the very beginning of life. But I currently work in weight management. So I do obesity care, helping people get healthier, regain their health. It's not where I've always been for 18 years. I've done this for about the last 5 to 6 years now almost. But I get to the point in my career, my nurse practitioner career as a family nurse practitioner, helping people with just their primary care needs. I get really burnt out and I get tired of my patients just getting sicker and not doing anything other than saying, here's the next med or let's adjust your med and not really having solutions. So I changed career focus and now I help people lose weight, regain health, and it gave me a new joy with my career because I love what I do now. I come to work excited to see the changes that my patients are making and not dreading it and not looking for an exit ramp. I'm looking on how to grow my business. So that's just kind of the short and sweet of me. I'm also a mom. I have two kids. I've been married for 21 years and I live on a family farm of over 100 years. So that's just kind of me.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say family farm for under 100 years is going to be a talking point. That sounds amazing. Excellent, excellent overview. Thank you. I did want to
Yeah.
touch base on you said something pretty unique, which was when you were 5 years old, your mom pegged you as a doctor. Can you maybe dive in a little bit and give us an overview of were there certain mannerisms you had? Did you always care for people? Like what was that home life like?
Um, so my home life was a very supportive home life. I have two great parents that are still together and now helping me raise their grandchildren, and they have always supported me in whatever I wanted to do. I guess at 5, it was more of doctoring my baby dolls and my animals and stuffed animals and things. I was always the take charge, get in there, fix it kind of person. I was never the backseat person, so it just kind of fit. My parents didn't necessarily encourage or discourage. They just kind of said, hey, you can do whatever you want to do, and we're going to help you achieve your goals. But it was mainly just my drive to be in charge, fix things, help people feel better, be there to support other people, and then, yeah, just doctoring the heck out of those Cabbage Patch kids.
I wish there was some photos or video of that. That should be your
There
marketing, your
might
epic.
be.
It's like since 5 years old, It's like those institutes that are like since
Yeah.
1771, and you're like, hang on. We didn't even have infrastructure for retail back then. Anyway, that joke
Yeah.
aside, that's really interesting. And were you always very into studying medicine, biology? Like, was that always your draw, or was it more that you like to doctor people, like you said, or take care of them? What was kind of your process
Yeah.
as you were growing up doing those things? Like, was the science a draw, or was it just you liked helping?
I think it was more the desire to help, the desire to
Hmm.
be there, make people's lives better. I mean, when I went into college, I was actually headed to medical school to be MD. And then I met my husband and decided to get married and didn't want to spend that long in training. And so I switched to the NP route. But my undergraduate degree is actually in philosophy. And so
Cool.
my draw was medical ethics at that point, and I did a lot of my studies and classes in that. But no, it wasn't really the science. The science was a back seat to it all. It was more of just the desire to make people's lives better.
That's awesome. And obviously, thank you for being in your position, because having somebody that cares about other people, I think, is important
Yeah,
in healthcare.
yeah,
And
for sure.
the other thing is a lot of the time people don't feel that way, right? And I think that's
Mhm.
a huge problem that we can get into. But a lot of people feel like their doctor brushes them off. They're just a number. They go in and out of there. They're not taken care of. And if we really all understand that health is our number one, I mean, without it, it's always like that saying, you have a million problems, but when you're unhealthy, you only have one, right? And so everybody has that, whether they got too drunk in high school or whatever it is, when you don't feel good, you're like, listen, I would give all my money away, the car, whatever that is, that
Yeah.
just to feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you feel better, you're like, oh, okay, I'll go back to, yeah,
Very slow back in.
yeah, it's short-lived is what I've found. And I've had my share of, not having a good time in like really sick chronic conditions, but then also maybe getting drunk once in a while when I was that age. So perfect. So as you kind of went through your career and let's get you to, okay, you're working, you're taking care of people, boom, transition into weight loss clinic. Did you see like an epidemic of weight loss immediately? Like, was it like, oh my goodness, everything is on the rise, this is a huge problem, everyone's asking for this as a solution? Or was it naturally that was progressing and you kind of saw that as an foresight to go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of people in my practice seeking out weight loss. That seems odd, but it was just kind of the nature of primary care. People come in, you get your refill, you get your leave.
Yeah.
When I was burnout, though, I remember taking a minute and just stepping back and looking at my own life and the own progression of my health. And at multiple points in my career, I had struggled with being overweight and not a correct weight of where I should be. And I started thinking of what got me healthier, what put
Mm,
me here in this place that I am today. And it was my weight journey and my relationship with food. And
mm,
I just kind of asked myself, I was like, if you can do this for you, why can't you do it for other people? You're in a unique position where 80% of the people you see every day that walks through your door struggle from this central condition that affects everything else in their life. And if you can do it for you, why can't you do it for them? And that's just when I dove in. And at that point, I did get into the science. I think I read everything I could read. I have like 15 different degrees and certifications at this time. If you look at all the credentials behind my name, it looks like I'm going after the alphabet. Um, and I started just slowly, one at a time, with my primary care, using strategies around food, not necessarily the medicine side of weight loss, but food as your medicine and treating people with their lifestyle. And then after I got a couple of successes under my belt, I was like, man, what if I took this bigger? What if it wasn't just
mm.
my primary care people, but other people in the community, anybody who wanted to use nutrition and lifestyle as an avenue to get healthier? And so I froze my primary care practice and stopped accepting new patients and said to all of my primary care colleagues, hey, this is what I'm going to start doing. Send people to me. Let me see if we can fix them. And it
Mm.
has taken off since then. I had to remove the fear that I would steal their patients and start taking over their primary care patients and make it about, no, I'm just here to help them lose weight and to guide them through the nutrition side of things. So it was just the progression of my health. My career stinks right now. How can I make it better? Testing the waters a little bit, and then, man, the explosion that's happened with it.
That's such a cool story and very entrepreneurial because you had to take some risk and you saw a need in the market that wasn't being filled. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, and
very
even
commendable.
2 years ago, so I guess it was we're in 23, so July of 21, so earlier in 21, maybe January, the practice that I work with, I've worked for Dixon Medical Associates. I'm part of a multi-specialty group. But
Mhm.
my location of where I was at, I could not grow any further. I was sharing space with a pediatric provider, which wasn't necessarily what adults coming in for weight management wanted to do. They didn't want to sit next to the snotty nosed kid that's, coming in for strep throat or whatever else they're coming in for. And so I went to the CEO and I said, I've got to make a change. If I want to grow this, which is my passion, and if I don't grow it, I'm leaving. That's just kind of how it is. Um, I got to do something else. And she said, well, shoot me your ideas. So I wrote up a business plan and I created a separate business and bought a building and renovated it to be my practice. And so I created DMA Weight and Wellness so that I had a special place for people who are focusing on health and weight could come in to where, my seating didn't have arms on it. I used benches. I converted old church pews and made hallways wider and got specific scales and made it look more like a spa instead of a sterile medical environment. Because I wanted people to feel comfortable here, just coming in and letting their guard down and telling me what life was like and letting us figure out how to fix it. And it's been 2 years, and at this point, I'm about 4 months out booked for new patient appointments because I just
Wow.
up. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that's so cool. Like, that's incredible. And great job and congratulations. You just touched on something that made me laugh, which was somebody posted on Twitter that all these office spaces are now vacant, so they're making high schools out of them and they look like beautiful, right? And then somebody posted, when I was going to high school, it looked like a jail cell. And they showed those like murky. So I think, but see, this is the thing, like, you had the foresight to say, when I go to get my health check, I don't want to feel like I'm going to jail or like somebody's going to poke me with a needle and it's a dark room, right? It's like, that's really good, because I think people care about that stuff a lot more than maybe the media or doctors think. Like, I want to feel comfortable. If you're going to do checks on me, I definitely want to feel comfortable, or like I'm being pampered.
Yeah.
So I personally hate needles, so every time I got to do them, I do like 50 mantras. I got to lay down. I'm scratching my other leg. I'm talking to, and if the nurse is not talking, I'm like, you better talk to me, because like, let's be honest.
No matter what we talk about, we just got to talk.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care. Tell me about your great grandparents, like whatever the case is. So I just wanted to say, I think that was super good in terms of you kind of having a vision for how this could look. And I wish a lot more people would look at it that way, because it is something that's personal to everybody and they care a lot how it's presented to them. So awesome. There was another thing there. Okay, I lost it now, but we'll get back to it. But oh yeah, your business. Okay, so me and Amanda came up with a really good business plan. I don't know if you want to share. So we're looking for funding to create a fake vegetable company. So if anybody's interested, just message me.
Great. I mean, there's all this Beyond Meat that's out there that is supposedly meat made out of plant-based things that's helping people eat more plants, which honestly, it sickens me. It's so much processed and refined. Just eat food the way that it was put on the planet and go from there, and everybody will be a lot healthier. I was like, hey, if they can do it, why can't we? Let's make vegetables out of meat, but they look like vegetables, so you look like you're getting more vegetables in, and then people can get their protein. It's like, who would not want a sirloin broccoli?
We should probably not. I'm not going to share this now, because this is way too good of an idea. I actually think it would take off first as like a gag, like, oh, this is funny, and then if it tasted good, I think people would be like, you know what, it's kind of pretty good. So amazing. Cool. Let's go back to healthcare, and we've just been joking with you, which is also good, but you mentioned something that was interesting, which is the Beyond Meat, the fake meats, the more plant-based, and you're obviously extremely against it. Can you give me your opinion on why you're so against it, and what you think is actually happening there, and why you personally wouldn't recommend it as a personal opinion?
Yeah. So, one, to be clear, I have patients and clients that are plant-based, and I think you can be very healthy eating a plant-based diet if you're focused on whole foods. What I am very much against is when we start trying to just make processed foods out of our diets. I do personally believe it is harder to get a nutritionally sound, well-rounded diet that includes all the vitamins, nutrients, and proteins that you need from strictly plants. I believe that animal proteins are some of the most bioavailable, easily absorbed proteins that are out there, and they contain all the vitamins and nutrients that you need. Also, that there are plants that have phytotoxins and phytonutrients in them that may inhibit you from absorbing some of the proteins that you need and some of the other vitamins that you need. Also, from a side of weight management, if we're not getting adequate protein, high levels of protein, good quality protein, our hunger center of the brain is not turned off. And so we're constantly hungry and you're having to eat nonstop around the clock. And my clients
Mhm.
and my friends that are plant-based or vegetarian end up eating a lot throughout the day. They have to eat a lot of small, frequent meals to get in enough nutrition to sustain them versus when I'm on a plant or an animal-based diet, I can get away with eating once or twice a day and not snacking in between and getting all my nutrition and maintaining my weight and not feeling that extra drive to just continuously eat.
Mhm.
Uh, we also see more muscle wasting and bone wasting if we're not getting good quality foods, whole foods, specifically our protein. And I can notice this with myself. I had a DEXA scan done. So it's one of the best ways to measure your body composition through DEXA imaging. And my bone density was normal, but it was low normal for a woman my age. And I took about a year and I really upped my protein goals and upped my protein specifically in red meat, but I think you can do it in other protein sources too. But I really focused on that. And my bone density went up by half a point.
Mhm.
My exercise was the same. My vitamin D levels are good. I was getting plenty of calcium in. My main focus was just on the protein and seeing that change. And when I look at my elderly clients who are declining and their muscle mass is going down and they're getting fractures of the hips and things of that nature, and then I look at how their diet changed, they went from
Mhm.
eating more veggies, fruits, and meats to peanut butter and crackers and oatmeal out of a package and whatever is quick grab and go. Little Debbie cakes for breakfast. Half of them eat Little Debbie cakes for breakfast. And this is not good sound quality food. And when we're talking about like the Beyond Meats and things like that, it's just, if you look at the ingredient list, it's like 30 something ingredients in the meat that you're eating, as opposed to you pick up a pound of ground beef and your ingredient is beef. I have also a very hard time believing that foods that the human race has been eating since the existence of the human race is all of a sudden driving our chronic conditions. Why were they not there at this rate hundreds of years ago? If that was so, there's something else been introduced to our environment. And in my opinion, that's mostly processed foods, things that are coming out of factories instead of farms.
Amazing. So much to unpack there. I'm gonna start with this one.
Okay.
Have you seen people personally eating Beyond Meats and vegetable patties and that type of protein? And because I know they're putting, I forgot if it was soy or pea protein powders in there. So they're trying to give it protein, right? Are you seeing a huge difference in satiety, for example, like as a starting point, if they're eating that type of meal versus just eating regular beef? So
Mm-hmm.
do you have personal experience with that or not, or maybe not as much?
Uh, Not a great amount because most of the people that end up sticking with me for weight management end up they're more of omnivores. They're eating plants and meats and
Yeah.
things of that nature. I've had a few people that I just know through association uh,
Hmm.
who eat Beyond Meats and products like that as their primary protein source, and they are still having to eat multiple meals a day. So they're
Yeah.
kind of becoming that grazing pattern instead of having natural meals.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do the people who don't eat meat that are on your, let's call it more vegetarian, maybe pescatarian, possibly vegan diets that you see, how do you see that they have to cope versus somebody that does eat meat? Like, is it like you're saying, like they're eating all the time, they're always hungry? Are
Mhm.
they feeling as energized? What's kind of, is there like huge differences between those two groups that you specifically see day in and day out?
Yeah, so my people who have more of a meat aversion have a harder time getting the meat in, or pretty much eating like ovo lacto vegetarian things like that. They are eating more. I find that they are relying even more so on like beans and things of that nature. A lot of them are still having to include a lot of wheat products, bread products, refined grains, and things to feel full. Um, we do see a lower energy level. We have to supplement B vitamins specifically in this group because they're not getting as much B vitamins as they need
Yeah.
just from their foods. Um, Yeah. And I just find that the relationship with food is different, if that makes sense. And so, they're constantly thinking about food more than the people who are
Yeah.
focusing more on quality animal-based protein. It's like food just becomes a second thought instead of something that you're like, man, when's my next meal coming from and what am I going to eat? The other thing is if you're doing a more plant-based diet is you have to be very intentional about what you're eating. So you have to plan out what you're eating. You can't just spur the moment go to, Burger King and ask for burger patties, which is a whole food, going to Burger King and getting 4 burger patties, it's whole foods. You can't do that on that diet. You have to be very planned to make sure you are getting all of your vitamins and nutrients. And so if you're a busy person, especially like a busy mom trying to do that, it's very difficult to get all your nutrition in.
Okay. So it sounds like, if I'm getting this correct, you have to plan ahead. It's almost
Mhm.
impossible not to basically go for junk, because if you're at the store or whatever, you're gonna just grab whatever doesn't have meat, quote unquote, right?
Mhm.
And that could be candy, sugar, mostly sugar, sugary things, because the
Yeah,
stores
yeah.
pack it with that. You constantly have a little bit of fatigue, or not fatigue, but lower energy, let's say, than for example, people who are taking in the meat, and you are thinking about it all the time because you're hungry.
Yeah.
Did we nail
Yeah.
that?
And there
Yeah.
are plenty of people, like I said, that do a plant-based diet. They plan it out, they orchestrate it,
Yep.
and they feel better there. And I will also say this too, when someone goes from like the standard American diet, just eating, whatever, whenever, to a more plant-based whole foods diet, they initially do feel really well. It's usually, a little bit down the ways,
Yeah.
you worry about that, the energy bonk kind of thing.
That's actually a great stat to bring up, because everything is going to work against that diet. It's almost
Mhm.
like any diet other than the American diet is better.
Mhm.
And then, to your point though, so we look at a lot of stats in terms
Mhm.
of, can people sustain a diet? Can they sustain lifestyle changes? I know you work day in, day out with people doing that personally. We look
Mhm.
at that aggregate data, and it still shows 97% of people that go on a diet fail within like a year and a half, usually within 6 months. And it's almost like you said, they go on something that's working, they have this like euphoria, and then it
Mhm.
starts to become, oh, maybe I have a little bit here, maybe a little bit there, triggers food cravings like crazy, because all the other foods have been scientifically made to make them addictive, right? And I'm not saying that in like, look at these evil companies. I'm saying those are their scientists that got hired to make things addictive, so you would eat them and buy them and like the brand.
Mhm.
So it really is interesting after that 6 month mark how fast people rebound, and then it just like comes right back up, the weight or the cravings, or they go on like a bender for a week. And by the way, I'm just gonna call this out. I've done this multiple times in my life. 100%. I have definitely eaten a whole pizza multiple times in my life. So I'm not judging. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying statistically that's true. And I've seen it. I went on multiple diets, so many diets in my life. And I always remember I would go really well for a long time and then go, oh, maybe I'll have this here. And then, oh,
Mhm.
maybe this too. And then it's like 2 days of, well, I haven't had this in a while. And then you're like a weekend and you're like, well, I might as well eat the whole cake. So yeah, it's fascinating. And it's great that you bring that up, because I think is a huge problem, which is a really good segue into how do you deal with that, right? So let's use that six months to 1 year period. Maybe your first 3 months, and correct me if I'm wrong, like anybody that works with you 3 months in, great. First 3 months, they're excited, they're getting some results, they're learning new things, right? Like all these things are probably foreign to them. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong. And then what happens when you're hitting those like stalemates, or, I really want some cake with my family, or why can't I have 4 beers on Sunday? How are you approaching that? And obviously you're busy and booked for months in advance, so it's working. I'd love for you to share, if you can, how you approach that, how you keep them there. Is it a
Yeah.
lot of it mental, or is it mostly like keep them on a diet plan? Like what is the secret sauce?
Man, and for everybody, it's a little bit different because each individual has different struggles and things like that. But
Yeah.
um, one, we find that keeping frequent contact with the people that are helping them on that journey. And so with us, I see them a lot during the first 3 months. I think I have 4 appointments with myself. They have 3 appointments with the health coach just in that first 3 months to make sure they feel good and secure. But after that, I don't cut them loose. I'm still seeing them about every 6 to 8 weeks until we reach maintenance, because I want that accountability there, knowing that they're coming back in. We talk a lot about mindset. And if you keep the mindset that it's not fair, that you can't have that pizza or that beer or that whatever, you're going to end up having it. And I tell people all the time, you have to want health more than you want that. Whatever that is going to taste really good and maybe feel really good for a couple of hours. But then a couple hours after that, you're not going to feel good. And then you're trying to pull yourself back out of that hole and get control of your cravings and get back control of how you feel. And it's not worth it. And at the end of the day, you have to want your feeling of health more than you want that piece of food. We talk about our environment a lot and trigger foods, and thinking of foods more as addictive substances as opposed to nutritional substances, specifically processed foods. If there are trigger foods, you have to avoid them, just like an alcoholic avoids alcohol. You would never take your alcoholic friend to a bar and say, just have one beer, it'll be fine. Do that with people who are addicted to foods. And there's great research out there that shows that sugar and processed foods hit the same pleasure center of the brain as drugs and alcohol do, and triggers those responses, physical and emotional, the same way that drugs and alcohol do. So for me in particular, I use myself as an example. I can never eat another Snicker or Baby Ruth again in my life. I can't, because I will be that person that goes and finds more of them and eats them until I can't find any more. And my family also knows they don't come in my house. Even, when we go trick-or-treating on Halloween with my kids, those things don't come in my house, or it's the first thing they get rid of because they know, hey, mom's going to eat those. And I turned that back to my patients and said, okay, your home has to be a safe place for you to either eat or not eat. If there's something in your home that is going to trigger you to get off plan and move away from health instead of toward health, it can't be there. And everybody in your house needs to support that for you. You're not telling them they can't eat that, they just can't eat it in the house. And that goes back around to having the support. If you have friends that are on the same journey, that are focused, if you're coming to a clinic that has the same focus in the journey, and you're looking for support online and in other places, that's going to keep you on track when the times get tough and all you can think of is the brownie that's staring you in the face kind of thing. Having that phone a friend option or the app option to go look at, or some other avenue out. But you got to have support. You got to want health more than you want the other things. And then live and learn. Health and weight loss is not a journey that just goes like this. It's a lot of ups and downs and figuring out how to navigate situations. And when you do get off track, practice some self-forgiveness, but really think about what got me here. Was it a stress trigger? Was it a holiday? Was it a random spur of the moment thing? What was it? And how can I not do that again the next time? Specifically around holiday times, we encourage people, hey, start planning October 1st for Christmas. So start planning the things that you're going to make, find the recipes, and I use myself as an example all the time. And maybe that's one of the ways we're successful is we use our own personal experience and relate it back to the patient. But the first 4 years that I went low carb, because I tried and failed a calorie restricted diet from early teenagehood up until about the age of 30. I was on and off, weight gain up and down. But the first 4 years on low carb, I wasn't super successful. I was on and off with it as well. And when my husband got on board, that helped. So having the emotional support and the physical support of someone in my home working on the same thing. But it was also around that time where I decided, all right, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm not getting off track this year, but things like Chex Mix were always part of my family, and fudge was always part of my family. And those brought me great joy remembering these things throughout the years. So I started in October finding the ways to make them differently so that I could have something that reminds me of that, share it with my family, share it with the others. And then come January, I'm not digging myself out of a hole because it didn't trigger that same thought process and to get off track, and didn't trigger me to keep eating foods that I shouldn't be eating.
Honestly, amazing. Because and I'm genuinely happy that that's your approach, because I feel like this is the part that's always missed. Like everyone writes these books, right? Hey, try this diet, do this. Yeah, I'm going to read that book and then I'm back in my same environment with the same triggers, with the same friends, with the same bars that I go to, of course you're gonna fail. Like there's just absolutely no way that it's kind of like we always say 99.999% of patient care is outside of office, and yet people are given a pamphlet when they leave, and then they say diet lifestyle interventions don't work. Well, of course not. You give them a pamphlet and they left the office, and now they're supposed to, in all of the chaos that they have, change, right? And it's like there's just no way to do that. And on top of that, nobody checks in on them, right? And there's no like fluid way to know what's going on and then maybe help them out. And it goes back to what I was saying, is you making it look good and like a spa experience. Okay, somebody cares about me. Oh, they really treated me nicely. Oh, now I'm more willing to listen to them. This is a huge problem. I feel like we've gone so far away from that. You listen to, like, back in the days, doctors used to take time with their patients and all this stuff. And I'm not nagging on doctors. Like, I know I've talked to so many doctors, like, I barely have time between patients to read notes. Like, I have like 40 a day sometimes, right? So they're like spent, right? They can't do it. And I think that is 100% the only way it can happen, because you could eat whatever diet, it's not standard American, and like we said, it's going to work. Can you stick to that? Is somebody going to keep you accountable? Did you change your beliefs around that? Are you actually choosing your health first? How do you reframe those things? 100% more important than what they're eating, in my opinion, because any whole foods diet, obviously, as we both know, is gonna do that, right? So I really love that approach, and thank you for sharing, because, like, again, like 10 out of 10, it has to be that way. There's just no way anybody can change without people being there and on a support system. And I love your analogy, because it's like, if you're a drug addict, you get your whole family involved. Everyone knows, okay, they can't have any of these medications. They can't do this. Let's make sure they're taken care of. When we go on vacation, don't give them. Great. But like, nobody thinks of that with caffeine or sugar in any way. And, there's a lot of studies that show how it impacts the brain similarly.
Yeah.
Right.
Very much so.
So, and then honestly, I can relate. If I eat ice cream, I'm eating the whole tub. There is 0% chance. You know how people, they'll buy the big one, and it's, oh, have a, why would you ever have a scoop? I'm like, it's gone. Like, that's the
a little is good and a lot is better.
Yeah, I'm like, and then you rationalize it. Your brain's like, well, you had some anyway, so you might as well have all, and it's like completely irrational. Just your brain is now triggered to fiend on that like it was a drug.
Yeah.
So,
And we have to, that's another mindset thing that I focus on in my practice. I give people a green, yellow, and red list, just like a stoplight. And your green list are your safe foods. You can feel safe eating them if it's in your kind of meal timing that I give you. Your yellow list is okay, but you want to use caution with them. And if they trigger you to eat more, then you probably need to avoid those. The red list is like a stoplight. Stop, don't do it. Don't go there, whatnot. But sometimes in life we run red lights, right? But just because you run a red light once doesn't mean you run every traffic signal that you come across the rest of the day. So it's trying to get out of that mindset of, I'll start again tomorrow, I'll start again the next day, or I messed up and had a little, I might as well go ahead a lot. No, stop right where you are, stop running that red light, and don't run the next one. You just get right back on track. And staying off, the longer you stay off track and the more you try to rationalize it, the worse it gets and the harder it is to get back on track.
Yeah, that's awesome. You clearly have like the system down. Very cool to learn more about it, because we haven't talked in depth about how you approach this. All right, I'm being mindful of time, because we could probably riff on these things for hours. One thing I did want to ask was, you've gone over a lot of information, and what would you say is so that your approach you just went over with, amazing, 10 out of 10. What's the number one challenge running a weight loss clinic? Like, is there one thing that, if you had to say, like, 80% of people get caught up on, and you really have to get them through that part, and then it's smoother sailing, let's say, is there something like that? Or is it really a lot more just very specific to the person, and you can't really peg it to one thing?
So I would say one of our biggest challenges starts at about, for the individual, not for me as a practice, me as a business is a different challenge, but for the individual trying to lose weight, I see them at that 6 week mark. And I think right after that 6 week mark in is when things start to really get challenging.
Mm,
Um, Typically at that point, the family has been on board, the family is clearing
mm,
out the house. The patient's really motivated. They're seeing that initial quick weight loss that happens anytime you completely change and revolutionize your diet.
yep.
But at that time, the weight loss slows down. Okay. So about 6 to 8 weeks, kind of, it doesn't necessarily stop, but it slows down and it starts to get discouraging. And that's when those thoughts really creep in of, oh, I need to have this, or I need to have that, or I deserve this, or maybe I can have just a little bit of this. Or the family starts saying, well, she's doing pretty good for 6 weeks, or he's doing pretty good for 6 weeks. I think we're okay to bring this stuff back in at this point. And they want it, and they haven't addressed their own necessarily food addictions and problems with foods and things
Yeah.
like that. And so I think it's just a unique time during the weight loss journey where, like I said, the progress slows and they let one or two things in. And at that point, there it's that make it or break it time. They're either going to continue with it or they're going to backslide at that point. So it's getting through that moment. And that's where my health coaching comes into key,
Yeah.
having that accountability there. They also have an app that they have for the first 3 months of the program to where the health coach is talking to them every
Mm,
day during the week, giving them encouragement, things of that nature. And so, yeah, just that contact. And when they start dropping off and stop responding, then we know, all right, they're in trouble. But the health coach can then reach out and say, hey, what's going on? What's creeping in? What's getting in the way of our journey at this time?
gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot, like 6 weeks in, and I thought it was like, okay, in 3 months, but it's even sooner, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because it's like, that first 2 weeks is euphoria. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm excited. Everyone's all in. And then it's like, okay, it's kind of like working out. It's pretty much the same thing. When you start working out your first 6 weeks, you're like, oh, I'm getting so much stronger. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like years of grinding to get the strength, 5 to 10 pounds up in weight,
Yeah.
whatever the case. So
Yeah.
awesome. Why carbohydrate restriction as
Mm.
your approach?
Yeah. So, one, because well, to me, carbohydrate restriction emphasizes higher protein, and higher protein
Mm,
encourages higher satiety. And if you are overweight and you can't control your hunger, you're in big trouble. So, to me, that's the first reason. The second reason is carbohydrates are the most easily to make refined and processed, and you can't do that as much with your protein. I mean, there are protein shakes and things like that out there, but there are way more processed carbs out there than there are, proteins. Also, it makes sense to me hormonally with the body. The carbohydrates are going to stimulate your insulin levels. Your insulin levels are going to encourage you to store more body fat. They're also going to stimulate the hunger hormones in the body. And if I dial the carbohydrate nozzle down, which everybody has a different kind of threshold that they can tolerate and that they do well with, but if I dial that down, I have a lot better chance of controlling the hunger, controlling the hormones, and controlling body fat storage. And so to me, it just made better sense for biology and with habits. If you're trying to get somebody off of processed foods, that's
yeah.
the thing that you're decreasing anyways. So for me, that's why.
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Which leads me to, let's talk Ozempic.
Okay.
How have you seen it work with your clients? What's been your experience? Obviously, it's a hot topic right now, probably will be in the future. You have all these studies coming out one way or the other, people arguing one way or the other. So,
Yeah.
from somebody who administers it, deals with people day to day, basically the horse's mouth, right? Like, let's hear and see how you use it and whichever way it's gone for your patients.
Yeah. So on the topics of GLP-1s for weight loss in general, I'm kind of the middle ground person that's seeing both directions.
Yep.
As a primary care person, I've been prescribing this class of drugs for diabetic patients for 17 years when they
Mm,
first came out. So I have experience seeing them in the diabetic population before we ever used them in the weight loss population. Uh, I'll just tell you the conversation that I have with patients when they're trying to make the decision, because ultimately someone's weight journey is their journey. It's not my journey. I am here to guide them. It is up to them what they do, how they do it, that type thing. So medications for weight loss in general, there's pros and cons, and everyone needs to be aware of the pros and cons that are there. The pro is it helps you lose weight quicker in most people. And honestly, the GLP-1 products are our best and strongest as far as amount of weight loss that happens. But there are side effects. Every drug has a side effect. GLP-1s have some pretty significant side effects, and people need to be aware of those. And part of it is in how they work. One of the ways they work is they slow the motility of food through the gut. And if you're slowing motility in the gut, you're affecting how your gut works. So food's moving through slower, you're feeling full longer, but that also means your prominent side effects are nausea and constipation. And there's a good percentage of my patients, I would say 10 to 15% of people who those side effects are so extreme that they can't continue the medication. There's also some complete contraindications to taking it, like if you've had pancreatitis or a family history of thyroid medullary carcinoma, which is a highly genetic thyroid cancer, they're off the table. You can't use them. GLP-1s in general, though, while they're our strongest, they're our best, they are also truly meant to be lifelong medications. That's how they were designed. That's how they were studied. They have never been researched in short-term interventions. And the ones that are out there show that when you stop them, you regain significant weight. And in my experience, even when someone changes the types of foods that they eat and they really work on their lifestyle, there's significant weight regain that happens. And I didn't really know why that was until not long ago. And I dug more into the science, and I found out that GLP-1s increase adipogenesis, which is the growth of new fat cells. And you think, wait, that's a little backwards. If you're trying to lose weight, why are you growing new fat cells? It also inhibits or slows down apoptosis, which is the death of fat cells. So you've got your old fat cells hanging around longer, which they hang around a long time anyways, but they're hanging around longer, and then you're creating new fat cells. Well, when you're on the drug, the new fat cells are staying small. The old fat cells are shrinking down. So you have a net loss of that. But when you come off of that drug, both of those fat cells wake up, the old and the new, and then all of a sudden they're emitting double the hunger signal. So you're more hungry than you were before you went on the drug, and you technically have increased fat. So if you have more fat, you can gain more weight back. And it's very difficult to manage and control off the meds. In my experience with using them just for weight loss, I have had one patient be able to come off and not regain significant weight. Wow. And they are having to be very diligent about what they are eating, when they are eating. Regardless if they're hungry, they have to eat the way they were eating when they were on the drug, and staying on top of their exercise and things like that. The majority of people gain back. And honestly, within about 2 months of stopping the medicines, I'm getting a phone call saying, please put me back on. I can't do it without this kind of thing. Now, you may not always have to stay at the highest dose that it took to lose your weight. We may have to bring it down a notch, but most people do stay on it. Yeah. So
gotcha.
They're tools. They can be a tool, but they are just that. And if you are someone who is not ready to be on that medication indefinitely, then it's probably not the direction you want to think of from the very beginning.
Gotcha. You brought up a really interesting point, which is if they're producing more fat cells, so this is where my head goes. Can they lose weight, but then their body composition looks like it got fatter? So like the scale is going down. You could lose muscle or skeletal tissues, right? But then have you seen that at all? This is more of a curiosity thing.
Yeah. So I don't know that we have a good way to adequately measure that, because you're having to measure the amount of fat cells in the body. Because when you're looking at like the bioimpedance scale or even DEXA scan, you're looking at the total overall fat mass, which the total fat mass is shrinking down because your old fat is shrinking down. So your percentage of body fat is going down. And we use a bioimpedance scale here to watch muscle mass. And what I see in particular that affects muscle is if they're not getting their protein. Like if they're skimping on their protein goals, they're losing lean tissue as fast as they're losing body fat tissue percentage wise. Gotcha.
Okay, that's a great so I know people are less hungry on it, and when I was looking, it alters how hormones are responding. It alters the flow of the food. is it
Mhm.
also inherently an appetite suppressant, or is it because it's slowing down the food digestion process, you're less hungry because of that?
Well, one of the hormones that it works on affects the appetite center of the brain,
That's
and you
right.
do
Yeah.
have some receptors there too. So yes, your satiety is suppressed.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because then hormonally you're less hungry. Digestive wise, you're digesting slower, so you're less hungry. And then those two as a combo is
Yeah.
obviously anyone's going to get results if those two mechanisms are in place.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm gonna wrap it up with asking you about something really cool that you have coming up. So Amanda
Okay.
has an event that she is hosting with lots of amazing doctors that probably see online all the time. Amanda, if you could give us a rundown of what the event is, where people can find out about it,
Yeah.
what they can experience when they get there, who's going to be there, all that good stuff, and give
Yeah.
us the
Yeah.
lowdown.
So the event is called Low Carb for Better Health. This is our second year at this event. This year we're going bigger and better than last year. Last year I had it in like my husband's high school. He's a high school teacher, so we used his auditorium and on the weekend. It was really low tech, but this year we're upping it a little bit. We're going to be at Montgomery Bell State Park and in Conference Center, which is an actual event center. Well, it's a country event center, so keep that in mind. But it's an event center. We have 6 speakers. So yours truly will be speaking. I have Jennifer Williams, that is a diabetes specialist. Autumn Weathers, who is from Watch Autumn Keto. She has reversed put her Crohn's disease into remission and treats her Crohn's disease through this way of eating. We have Miss Nisha Berry, Dr. Ken Berry, and Dr. Eric Westman. They are some of the big founders in the low carb movement, some of them more carnivore, but great published people out there. And also Craig Emmerich from Craig and Marie Emmerich, who do a lot of cookbooks and are world-renowned authors and chefs and things of that nature. It's going to be an all-day event on August 26th at Montgomery Bell State Park. There's going to be a meal cell in the middle of it where people can intermingle with the speakers, ask questions one-on-one instead of in a group if that's something that they choose to do. There's going to be some vendors there with things like Keto Chow will be joining us, Paleo Valley, things of that nature. We're just very excited about it. We're very excited to be able to take this message where we used to be one-on-one in the clinic and give it to a wide variety of people. We very soon hope to be adding a virtual option there for people who can't come to Tennessee, because we're in rural Tennessee. So if you can't make it there, be watching to be able to add that to it. You can see tickets on the links in the bio in my Twitter and my Instagram accounts, and that's at Decker Less Carbs.
We put those links down below, so go check it
Awesome.
out. Amazing conference that I've been looking into. Lots of great speakers, and yeah, go check out Amanda's links down below. Thank you so much, Amanda. It was
Thank
a pleasure
you.
having you on, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.